All right, Marcus, bring it, man. I'm ready to go. You ready?
I'm all kinds of ready. This is fantastic, brother.
Same, man. I'm really excited to do this. So the way we were going to start out here is I would really love for you to share what does this amazing family look like for you right now?
Yeah, you bet, brother. First of all, I just want to say thank you for having me. Thank you for all you're doing. I think it's so beautiful. I know we've been drawn together, man, that our meeting was by no accident. I'm sure we'll get to that, but I just want to say thank you. Love you, brother. I love what you're doing for this world, and so excited to have even 1% of 1% of 1% of it. Just, I'm cheering you on. But enough about you, okay? Let's talk about me for a minute. I have two amazing daughters, and I have the most glorious, amazing wife on the planet. And it's not comparing her to other people. Well, I mean, she is the best, but she is the best for me. She was made for me. We're coming up on 19 years of marriage, and I got a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old daughter, two daughters who I absolutely love. These little girls, have an incredible relationship with. Wearing pink because I want to be known as the dad with daughters. And yeah, man, just here to share some of my stuff.
I'm excited to have you, man. Well, first thing I got to say is if you're watching us on YouTube, Marcus definitely knows how to dress. Like without a doubt. I'm here in my typical shirt and hat. That's what I'm known for. But you, my friend, like that outfit, dude, is on point. On point. I'm telling you, man.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Yeah. So first of all, 19 years of marriage. So I've been married 20 this year. We just celebrated 20.
My God.
And but I'm curious, what have you learned in 19 years of marriage? Like, so let's do it this way. I want you to think about Marcus 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. And I want you to call him up on the phone and be like, hey man, this is me 20 years from now. Okay. You've been married now 19 years to Brooke. And I'm going to give you some pearls here, some words of wisdom. And I want you to listen to me very, very closely so you don't hit these pitfalls. All right. And here's what I'm going to tell you. What would you tell yourself?
Okay. Here we go. Let's jump right into it. My number one piece of advice for young Marcus and young every dude out there, every couple, honestly, I love to pull couples aside when I'm invited to a wedding. And I love to give them this. This is my number one piece. You guys ready for this? Here we go.
Let's do it.
Here we go. Don't sweat the small stuff. Choose your battles. Choose your battles, and especially to get both of you guys on the same page with choosing your battles. Here's where it's at. When I'm young, when we're all young, and we first are getting married, now our life is so different. I'm living with this person for the first time. This is awkward. They're not doing dishes the way I want them to do dishes. You didn't put the fridge the way I like the fridge to be put. If you sweat all that small stuff, and if you pick every battle, it's all noise. And my wife and I, Brooke and I, learned this so early, and it was so awesome. We just had this conversation like, hey, we're bickering at each other. Like, and you don't want to turn me into this person you think you want me to be. If I turn into that exact person, if I do all these things, I'm going to become this shell of a human being. And then you're not going to respect me. You're going to go, are you even a man? And I spoke to her this way, and she's like, you're absolutely right. So what we did is we had an agreement. We're going to pick our battles. So I'm going to bite my tongue on the small stuff. And if it's like, hey, this fridge isn't arranged the way I like, let's have a conversation about it, and let's decide what it's going to look like for the two of us. Because we're a new entity now. It doesn't get to be the way Marcus the Bachelor had it, and it doesn't get to be the way Brooke at home had it. And when that happens, it's such a beautiful thing, because now when Brooke brings something up to me, I know she chose her battle, and then I listen. And I make real significant changes so that I can please my woman. That's my woman, man. I got to make her happy. And that has brought us so much joy in this life, because we don't sweat the small stuff, and we really do pick our battles.
So I have a question for you on that. How do you get aligned and on the same page with what battles are small and which one are big? And there's a reason I'm asking that, right?
No, I love the question. And honestly, that should be the natural first question that comes up. It's going to take some massage. This is all about communication. And so we're just going to talk through it, because what'll usually happen is one person will bring more battles than the other. And it's not about keeping score or anything, but let's be honest, when we're younger, we kind of know, hey, I think I brought you two things, and this is your 22nd thing you've brought me. And now let's just have a conversation. Like, can we define what's a small thing? Because, you know, this is your 20-second thing you're bringing me. I just don't know. Is this really the battle you want to, do you want to talk about this one? Is this the one you want to stand on? And I would bring that up to Brooke, and she was like, you're right. I don't want to bring this one up. I'm like, awesome. But
Okay.
what was your specific? I'm curious.
No, yeah, I'm just curious because, one thing we always talk about in the community and is perception, right? And how people operate make total sense to them. So like for instance, what I might deem as a small battle, my wife might deem as a big one.
Yeah.
And what I might deem as a big battle, my wife feel like that's not really a big deal.
Yeah.
So I know what Jessica and I, like, we've gone through processes of like, hey, here's our guardrails and our boundaries and our conflict resolution. Here's how we handle things. And there are rules that we operate by. At the same time, to be quite honest with you and honest with the entire audience, I don't know if we've ever actually gone through a process of, hey, these are the battles we pick and the ones we just kind of don't. But also, by knowing her for as long as I have a really good sense on what's super important to her.
Yeah.
And I know that could be a battle. And I think she does the same for me. So I don't know if that's actually something we've learned over time and never actually brought to the surface, but we know it's there.
Yeah.
But I'm curious for you guys, have you ever, like, it sounds like for you guys, you've actually have very deliberately and intentionally have brought maybe some of these things to the surface of what deems necessary.
Sure, absolutely. Larry, this is such a good point. And I want to mention, I think you and I have the benefit of being together with our women for almost 20 years or over 20
Right.
years now for you. So most people don't get to that point. And it's like, oh, I know, just the way she's breathing, I know what's on her mind right now. Not all guys do. And I certainly didn't have that 15 years ago. And what's really important, and this is why I love that you brought this back up, is that it's not what's important necessarily to me. If she deems it as important, it's important. And if she wants it to be one of her battles, then I'm listening. And now I won't judge it. And that's why this is so great about choosing your battles. So let's say there's only going to be 5 battles this month. I don't get to judge which 5 she brought. It could be the smallest one. Hey, if it's small to me, that's maybe even better. Okay, that's only a small change for me then. But it's really what's important to her so that she gets to live her happiest life. I mean, I want my wife to be the happiest person on the planet. That brings me so much joy.
I love that, man. And I think it's key that I think both people, and you guys, you and Brooker, I think of this mold is that, hey, if it's important to you, it's important.
Yes.
And if it's important to me, then it's important. Right. And then to agree, like, because I think it's very easy, right, for our egos to get in the way and be like, well, that's not really that big of a deal. Right. Yeah. And then I think that's one of the death by 1,000 cuts that we can do in any relationship. Be like, it's not a big deal. Stop worrying about it. And just like you completely just invalidated what that person might be going through or feeling just by doing that alone.
You're so right, bro. And listen, one of the other things you just said that I just want to highlight, when we got married, 2 became 1. Like, yeah. That doesn't just mean what we men know it means, but what that means is we're one unit now. Her lack of happiness is my lack of happiness. Her joy is my joy. So if something's bothering my wife, it bothers me because we're one unit. And I think when people think of themselves still, yeah, but I'm still my own. Yeah, you got to think more like a one unit, man. This is like, I'm in this for the next 80 more years together. Not, let's see how it goes, man.
Yeah, both people need to be committed, which, by the way, you probably will be here for. You are like a picture of health, man, which I want to get to that later because we'll get to health later and why that needs to be a priority. But I just want to mention that. But I want to go back to these girls, right? The 12 years old, 14.
Yes.
And it sounds like you've got a very solid relationship with these girls. I know for you, one of the things that you do in your life is this productive timeout where you take each one of your girls on some daddy-daughter time.
Yes.
And what I would love for you to share is, number one, why do you do that? Why is it meaningful to you? What do you do with that time? And what type of ROI do you see in the relationship because you do it?
That's beautiful, bro. And listen, some of what I say might be obvious to some of you guys. It wasn't to me. Like when I discovered this stuff, I was like, wow, this is gold. Like I just became a real dad. I need to devote time to each of my daughters individually because I want an individual relationship. I don't want it just to be daddy daughters. I want it Marcus and Claire have a relationship and Marcus and Bailey have a relationship. And like any relationship, that individual relationship takes individual time together, not just group dating all the time. So I take my girls on individual dates, and I'm really big on trying to, now this is tough with teenage daughters, trying to get out of them. But what's important? What's important? What would be fun to you other than us sitting on an iPad together? So that's a big part of it, but also taking them on individual trips. So this is only something I instituted a couple years ago, but it's going to be an annual thing because it is unbelievable. It was a buddy of mine who we just were having this conversation, and he has daughters, and he's like, dude, I started taking them on individual trips. And I was like, what? This is gold. So I let them choose. Of course, there's parameters. You can set the budget. You know, if it's going to be a 3-day trip. So for both of them last time, it was max 4 days. And because it's max 4 days, it has to be a max 6-hour flight somewhere. We can't be flying for 12 hours because then we've lost a full day out of our 4 days. And I just put these parameters on them. So, and one last thing, there has to be something that we're going to do that's like a real event, something that we're really going for. And so Claire chose Maui, and we went to Maui together, and there was a food festival going on. So we had just some incredible foods. I took her, and she's a real foodie, took her out some incredible dinners. Of course, we went on some incredible hikes as well. We had some amazing bonding time. And then Bailey, she's my younger one. She loves a few of these key YouTubers, and Matt Pat is one of hers. And he did this episode on, what is it called? Area 51. Area 51 in Vegas. And Area 15, is it? Area 15.
Okay.
Area 51 is the one that we all know about, the alien stuff. Area 15 is this whole thing that they created basically for YouTube. And it's this huge building that has so much unique lore. They've created all this backstory. So there's this one thing, it's like a supermarket, but it's like aliens kind of created this supermarket, sort of speak. And we spent the full day in there. Like you open one of the fridges and it goes all the way back into like this huge area. Like it's insane. And everything starts twisting. You're looking at things and you're like, oh, my brain hurts. What am I looking at? It's incredible. And she just wanted to spend the time there. And I loved that I got to spend that time with her. So we did all these fun things together. And then we did a bunch of other unique stuff in Vegas. We didn't do any gambling. But yeah, that was amazing. And we'll have each of these stories each time. And especially going and having to have something at the end of this trip, something in this trip for us to really do together. That's where the memories get created.
I love that, man. If you have more than one kid, I mean, like I started doing this as well when the boys we went on our first one-on-one trip when the kids were 6.
Nice.
And I've taken every single one of them to Chicago. It's super simple, but it's something that they have all loved. And so we do like the Shed Aquarium, we do the planetarium, we do Willis Tower, we do, we go to the Bean, we take a quick boat ride around the Chicago area, all these things, go out for pizza, all these things and they loved it. And it was a super easy, even inexpensive trip. But there's something exactly what you said. It's about the bond and the memories that are created on those trips and the experiences, right? And they don't have to necessarily be like these crazy, like big, huge trips, right? But they can be, you absolutely can. But at the same time, like I love the fact that your parameters are what they are. It's like, hey, let's pick a budget. Let's also pick like the number of days. Let's make sure that the flight is what it is so we can maximize our stay there. And let's do like an event. And, I love that you do that with these girls. I'm curious as to what has that done to your relationship and most importantly, even your conversations with them?
Huge. I mean, I think there's a lot of men out there find it hard to get into those deep conversations with their kids. Man, it's hard not to have some deep conversations over a 4-day period where it's just the two of us together. Mm-hmm. And that's just beautiful. And of course that we bring that home because now we've got inside jokes. We watched movies that that Mom and Bailey didn't watch, and now we got our own things going on, and that's amazing. And then there's also just little things you brought home with you that we can do here at home. So that's so massive. And I do want to highlight what you just said, which was they don't have to be big trips. Yeah, my first ones, we got on flights, and yeah, I spent some money on my kids. Doing camping trips, doing like little road trips, so valuable, maybe even more valuable. I felt kind of gross taking her all the way to Maui, but that's what she wanted. But, just going on a little road trip, spending that time together, spending the time in the car, spending the time setting up a tent, like that stuff is so, so valuable.
I agree, man. I agree. And it's the journey there and the journey back is also really cool as well. Kind of like if you've got 6 hours on a flight, that's a pretty cool experience, even just sitting shoulder to shoulder with your kid.
Absolutely.
We've done in our family, we've done some really small things like camping trips, but we'll make it a little bit more extreme. One of I think one of the coolest camping trips that me and the boys have ever gone on was when we went to Twin Lakes in Colorado, and we found this dispersed camp. We found this spot that was flat, and it literally looked over Mount Elbert and all of the collegiate 14ers that were out there. It was some of the most beautiful scenery I'd ever seen.
Nice.
And then we fished at the Twin Lakes, and like Marcus, I literally looked around. I took photos of it, and this was back in 2020. And I looked around, and I was like, this literally looks like something like majestic and heaven on earth. Like it was the beautiful lake we were catching trout out of, beautiful trees, and these ice capped mountains that were so tall, and it was July. And it was just like, my gosh. And all said and done, I think we paid $1,500, to go out there. And it was awesome. And then of course, this is our 20-year wedding anniversary, and we did Maui. We none of us have ever been to Hawaii. We renewed our vows, on the beach, which was really, really cool.
Nice.
One other thing too is when you and I met in Vegas, because we were on office hours with David Meltzer, and I was looking for things to do with my son, who also met you, my oldest son, because I always take one of the boys or somebody on a trip with me when I'm doing media, and I always love these things that you can do that you'll remember for a lifetime. And I was asking the event that you and I met at, I was talking to one of the locals, and I'm like, hey man, we're here for one more day tomorrow. Is there anything to do during the day? We have an event tomorrow night, but is there anything to do? He's like, yeah. He goes, you like helicopters? And I'm like, I've never been on one. He's like, you like firearms? I was like, oh, I love firearms. He's like, what about shooting a firearm out of a helicopter? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I was just like, what are you talking about? He's like, dude, he goes, give me your phone. And he put in this link. It was gunship helicopters. It's, from my knowledge and what I've been told, is the only place on the planet that a civilian can shoot a machine gun out of a helicopter in the middle of the desert at targets. And I'm like, are you serious? This actually exists? And so we pulled some strings. I called the place. We got the last booking the next day. I actually had to go rent a car to get there because an Uber won't drive you out there, because the last 4 miles is a gravel road, and it's in the middle of there's nothing around. It's in the middle of the desert. It was one of the coolest experiences I've ever experienced in my life with my son, watching him and me shooting a machine gun out of a helicopter at targets on the ground.
It's insane. Oh my
It's insane.
America. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, man. That's so crazy.
It's crazy, man. But like you think about it, that's the kind of stuff. Like, I'm not saying we gotta spoil our kids with like riches and all this stuff, but like, dude, an experience like that, it was somewhat expensive, but it was doable. But I'm sitting here thinking like, dude, he is going to be telling his own kid at 40 years old
100%.
when his kid's like, he's like, your grandpa took me on a trip. We shot machine guns out of a helicopter. Like, that's worth it. Right.
That's so worth it. Those are the memories, man. How much would you pay for a memory? And
oh my God, right?
That's not a crazy. Yeah, I freaking love that, man. Dang, if I had known that was there, Bailey and I would have been shooting machine guns out of a helicopter for sure.
Well, dude, the next time we're going to Vegas to be on Meltzer's show, you and I are gonna go book that. Yeah, we're gonna do it.
I'm in. I'm in. Let's go. We're back next year.
Oh, dude, Marcus just lit up. Hey, I am curious though. I know you mentioned in a previous conversation they're 14 and 12, but but they have no social media.
Yeah.
And I've never really, I don't know why, but I'm curious. Tell me why.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my wife and I decided that at a young age. I mean, before we had kids, that we wouldn't put them on social media at all. We didn't want them to experience it. We wanted them to choose their own path in life as well. And I mean, I don't need to get into like conspiracy theories or anything, but we all know what the algorithms are doing. And it's the more we learn about what the algorithms are doing, they're really molding our kids into very specific people. Oh, your child has blonde hair and likes Taylor Swift and this. Okay, then we are advertising like this. And at such a young age, I mean, we can't handle it as adults. What chance do our kids have? Like, they are just forming into exactly who they're supposed to be according to the algorithms. That's one of the problems. Number two is, you and I, we put stuff on social media, and as adults, we're like, oh man, Larry, not enough likes. Oh, I don't know if I'm worth it. I don't know if I'm a good enough guy. And or a bad comment comes in, and that's the one. Even though we got 200 praise comments, there's one bad comment. It's like, I'm not sleeping tonight now because of this guy who I don't know and don't care about, but he said bad things about me. That's adults. What chance do our kids have? So we communicated to them at a really young age. We said, listen, there won't be social media. You guys aren't going on social media. And we explained what would happen. We explained the difficulties with adults have with social media. God was so gracious, and I hate to sound like this is a positive, because it was a positive to my family. It was a real negative to another family. There's a family that's close to us, and their daughter, they had the same rules. She got a secret account. She got bullied so hard.
Oh no.
Bullied so hard. One day she started to just, I don't mean to be rude, like she was like 8 years old. She kind of lost it. They had to pull her out of school. She's still in counseling to this day. And my kids, who we communicated, like, here's what will happen if you have social media. Then they got to see what happens if you have social media. And they came to us. They're like, thank you so much for not letting us on social media. And that's going on around the planet. Like, this is no surprise. We all see what kids are turning into with social media. And we just made that decision. We're like, not for our kids. And they thank us regularly. Of course, once in a while, it's still a difficult discussion. Last week, Bailey came to me and she said, you know what, Dad, I'm really sad. A bunch of my friends have a Snapchat account that I didn't know about. And they meet and have sleepovers, and they go swimming together, and I'm not invited because I'm not on Snapchat. And so I just had to have this conversation with her. Listen, Bailey, I mean, number one, you're not going on social media because there's so much other negative stuff. And I went through it with her again. I want to treat her like she can make the decision with me, even though, I'm going to let her make her case. But we're kind of still like, not yet. And we said, listen, what if you just asked your best friend, hey, next time you guys are doing something public, would you mind inviting me? And now, if you get invited to that and they don't invite you to the next thing, are those really your friends? And tell me about these people. Like, do you really care about them? And just, you start peeling back these layers, you start asking these questions. It's like, no, actually, a couple of them I really don't like. A couple of them are really mean. I'm like, and so what are you missing out on again? Like, tell me what, of course, they've got FOMO. FOMO is a real thing. We all get it often. You just need to talk through it. And one of the things I really encourage parents with is, don't just go, because daddy said so. You're asking for trouble. Just communicate. These kids are so much smarter than we give them credit for. And we treated our kids kind of like a science experiment. We started talking to them like adults since they were like, always. They were 1.5 years old. I'm treating them kind of like an adult, just explaining what's going to be happening and why. Even when I'm trying to get food in their mouth off of a spoon, I'm like, here's why you need this nourishment. You need the proteins and the carbs so you can grow. And it worked out really well. I hate to sound like I'm bragging, but I literally have the best 2 little daughters on the freaking planet.
Well, I think it's a true testament to how you communicate with them, right? I mean, I think that there's a time and a place that, parents like say, hey, this is the decision, here's why. And I know you don't agree with it. That's okay. At the same time, there can be a more collaborative approach, even if we are guiding them to the decision that we know that's ultimately in their best interest.
So true.
I did I did a podcast with Jocko Willink, and this was
Yes.
this was like 4 or 5 years ago. But the podcast title was Explaining Why to Your Kids. And we, for some reason, we really hit on that topic. And this is coming from Jocko. And it was very controversial.
Yeah.
And Jocko said, if you can't explain why to your kids and your answer is because I said so, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa.
I love it.
And that rattled some serious cages when people heard that. And like we put a short clip of that on YouTube and people were just, they were outraged. But here's what he meant by that. He's like, listen, you know, effective leaders communicate effectively.
Yes.
They can effectively communicate. This is what we're doing, and here's why we're doing it. He's like, I disagree with parents who they don't even know why they're making the decision that they are. And when they're challenged, they just simply say, because I said so, or because I'm the dad and you're the kid, be quiet. But they don't even clearly know why. And he's like, and that's what I'm talking about. If you don't actually know why you are doing whatever it is you're doing, like when your kid challenges you and it says, hey, well, why? And your default is this because you don't know the answer, you're wrong. And I thought that was really interesting. I share that. You met my oldest son, Ethan. Ethan's 17, going on 8. Ethan does not have a Snapchat account. I'm battling the same thing. And I told him, I was like, as long as you're under my roof, and you know, your device is a privilege, it is not a right. I was like, there's no social media, period. And he does the same thing. He's like, well, my friends are blah, blah, blah. And it's the same exact thing. But here's the interesting conversation I just had with him around tough love. He lately, this is like fresh. He really wants Snapchat, and we've monitored some of his habits with the device and things that he's supposed to do, and they're not getting done and that kind of thing. And every time I look and I make observations, I'm like, every time I look over, you're on your phone. And so I pulled him aside yesterday. I'm like, I know you want this. These most important things that need to be done, you know, like your chores around the house, this, and this, and this, these aren't getting done.
Yeah.
Why would I grant another way for you to enter this virtual portal to steal more of your time when we can't even get the necessary things done?
Perfect.
And it's tough love, right? At the same time, but I'm like, you know, but I also am like, I'm very calm when I explain this to him. And it's not because I said so, because dad's trying to be a jerk. It's because, hey man, there are priorities that need to be done. And I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole because I want to talk more about you and this Tony Robbins thing and everything else we were talking about. But I think it's very, you can be very calm and very clear and just simply say, hey, you know, the most important things, or this, or this, these things are not being addressed. And until they do, and this is, by the way, this is how to do that, right? This is one way to do it. I asked him, this is another thing too. He asked me for ways. He's like, hey, I want to learn more responsibility around earning things around here, you know, because he's kind of becoming an adult. And I just had this guy on who is he's a master of critical thinking. Mm-hmm. So he teaches people how to critically think. So of course I want to be like, oh, okay, well, great. You can do this, this, and this. But instead I was like, okay, great. I was like, here's what I want you to do. And it's so funny, man. We're talking about this because by tonight, before he goes to bed, this is the deadline I gave him. I said, before you go to bed tonight, I want it written out. I want your ideas around what you would like to do, how often you would like to do it, why it's important for you to do it, and what can be earned when you're doing it. And he's like, he looked at me like he's like, well, why wouldn't you just tell me what I should do? I was like, because I want to know what's going on in here. I want to know how you're thinking. Yeah. It's easy for me to tell you. Yeah. I was like, you'll appreciate this because you're a business owner and so am I. I was like, Ethan, an entrepreneur, a person who wants to run their own business, they can't be the guy that's like, I need you to go work this factory line right now and do A, B, and C, and and this is all you do and be told what to do. You have to critically think and get creative on what you should be doing or what you want to do or how you're going to do it. I was like, this assignment is more for you than it is for me. It's to get you, how are we thinking about these things? I think that's so important, man.
So important. You're empowering him. You're creating a new leader. You're creating an adult. And I love that. And by the way, Ethan's such a great kid. Ethan, I know you're going to watch this, man. What a freaking stud you are, man. I'm so excited to see who you turn out to be. And anything I can do to support you, Ethan, on your journey, man, you reach out to me, brother.
I appreciate that. And I do have to make this disclaimer. Ethan is a great kid, and I understand the pressures that he feels to have, Snapchat. But, I I honestly think Ethan operates on a different level than his peers. I'm granted I'm not objective, but I also think it's because we approach things differently. We have different conversations. I don't just be like, yeah, go spend 8 hours in Snapchat. That's great. That's great for everybody.
Yeah,
There's different ways that we go about it. But I want to go back to um, actually, I want to stay on your girls here for a little bit
yeah,
longer.
sure.
You've got this great relationship with Brooke. There's a way that you treat her behind closed doors. There's a way that you treat her in front of your girls, and you do this very purposely and very intentionally. But I would love for you to share about that.
Absolutely. Let me start by telling you guys, I view Brooke very differently. She was created for me, and I was created for her.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to think about things, but it's
Yeah.
so true. She's literally the only female on this planet I see in color. All other females are in black and white. And if you've got the only woman in color, what would you ever look at a black and white female for? Like, I got my eyes only on one prize, and I already got that prize. That's my woman. Yeah.
That's so well said.
Thank you, brother. How I treat my woman in front of my kids, man, we don't put enough value on this, and we don't talk about this enough. Your kids are going to learn from what I love how Ed Milet, my buddy Ed Milet, puts this. He says they're going to do what they're caught, not what they're taught. They're watching. If you are aggressive in front of them towards your wife, if you are constantly beating her down, I got to tell you, guess what kind of men your girls are going to be looking for? Yeah, they're going to be looking for that, because that's what love is, right? That's what I grew up in, and I love my daddy. I love my mommy. My mommy is okay with being treated like that. My daddy treats women like that. Well, that's what I'm going to be looking for. Oh my goodness, that scares the crap out of me. I want my girls to find a guy who's obsessed with them like I'm obsessed with their mom. So we're really careful, even when we disagree about something, we're really careful not to do it in front of the kids. Now, there's times when you disagree and it's just, oh, actually, let's talk about that. But there's other times when it's something serious and you don't go, whoa, Brooke, no, I disagree. How dare you? Or what? No. Hey, do you mind if we have a chat in the other room? I want them not to believe or think that, oh, this is 100% perfect marriage all the time, right in front of them. We only show them the rainbows. No, but there's always love and respect. Always. That respect, man, we never cross that line. Even when we disagree, even when we've got a real problem, even when we've been hurt, the respect never goes away. And that's in front of them or behind closed doors. I think respect is a key part of marriage that has to be there if you want it to last.
I 100% agree. It's interesting. All this entire conversation is so timely. I just hosted a live training for 15 men who are going to come and do life with me for the next 14 weeks. It's a marriage mastermind that I do, where we teach them 10 skills around conversational excellence and connection, intimacy, and the whole 9 yards. And that was one thing that was really brought to the surface, right? Because I had men rate their relationships of where they're at. I'm not going to get into the rating just for sake of time, but I will say this. I asked the tough question, is this the relationship that you want your kids to see? Because they're watching your relationship, my relationship. This is a walking, talking movie that they're sitting in the front row seat with their bucket of popcorn, watching every move we make.
Yes.
And here's the other scary thing. They can't necessarily articulate everything in words, what they're seeing, but they feel it. And things that come out in what they've seen will come out in the relationships that they have down the road. And then they start talking about, well, my mom and dad did this and my mom and dad did that. And then it starts to come out and then it starts to be intellectually articulated. Yes. But for right now, they're just like this sponge, right? Yes. So what movie are we playing for them, in front of them? And I am not to say, like, quick story, and this is again about Ethan, but Jessica and I had a disagreement. This was a while back, and we have very distinct guardrails of how we go through conflict resolution. We don't raise our voice. We never call each other names. We don't bring up past transgressions against each other.
Yes.
We talk exactly how I'm talking to you. And luckily our boys, they hardly ever see Jess and I fight, but Ethan came walking past us. We were at the table. He goes, are you guys arguing? And we're like, no. I was like, we're disagreeing and we're hashing things out. He's like, so you're fighting? And I'm like, no, that's different. I was like, we're talking things out. He's like, are you guys gonna get a divorce? Like all of a sudden, like this panic. And I was like, you know what? I was like, and I asked Jessica this, right? I go, why don't you pull up and have a seat? I was like, I want you to watch this. I was like, notice that I know I'm going to ask you what you saw. So we went back and forth, Jess and I, for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, and we hashed it out just like we always do. And I looked at Ethan and I go, what'd you see? And he's like, man, he's like, that was cool. He's like, you didn't call each other names. No one raised their voice. And I was like, yeah, we don't punch each other in the head like you and Mason do. Right. Like stuff like that. I was like, this is how adult people, functional adult relationship people work things out. And this is a great example of when you go to have a disagreement with whatever girlfriend you have down the road, this is how we speak to each other. So important, man. Bro, you know, and I think we got to do that stuff.
So beautiful. Like this is, by the way, everybody who's listening and watching, this is how you become a better father. You pick up these little tidbits, like that's gold. Next time I have an argument with my wife, I'm going to invite one or both of my kids to watch. I think that was such gold right there, because why wouldn't you? And it keeps you accountable. Maybe it'll actually even help you calm down and be that person in the argument that you wish you were, because you're right there listening. I hope that slows your temper, slows your anger, and just, hey, how do I communicate this properly? How do I want my kids to deal with conflict? That is gold, brother. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you back, man. It's, you know, we're cut from the same cloth. It sounds like what you do with Brooke is a lot how we operate as well, which we follow those rules. You got to follow them and not deviate. But I'm really interested. If we were to fast forward the tape, 14 and 12, let's go to where they're 24 and 22. So let's go 10 years down the road.
Yes.
And they are telling their boyfriends, right, or significant others that, like, hey, I'm not going to stand for this because I learned this, this, and this from my parents. What do you think that they would be telling them?
Oh man, that's so beautiful. I think number one, I think they just won't, if I've done it properly, I just don't think they're going to get into these relationships that are even 100%. Remotely in the vicinity of toxic, of garbage, of the wrong dudes. I mean, I talk to them about that stuff constantly. And I show it to them. I like, that's one of the reasons I like spending time with them too. I want them to see, daddy's not like walking around when girls walk by like, whoa, like those little things you think are, that's not a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. If that's okay for daddy to do, that's okay for my future boyfriend to do. So yeah, man, I think about that stuff a lot. It actually leads me, you were talking about Tony Robbins. Can I tell you my Tony Robbins?
Yes, please.
Because it's about 10 years in the future. And this is one of my favorite stories to share. And it was such a game changer as a father. I'm one of Tony's platinum members. I've actually been kind of mentored by Tony for almost 30 years now. My father leaving me at a young age and just not being part of my life. I was looking for a father figure, and my brother had cassette tapes from Tony, and I started listening when I was 16. And I got hooked, and it was just like, oh my goodness, yes. And so recently I became a platinum, and we go on these special trips, and I get to really be taught the juicy stuff. But here was one of the greatest things I learned from him, and it was at a UPW event. And if you ever get a chance, you guys go do a UPW event. And this is called the Dickens principle. And what it is just like Dickens, just like the Christmas story. You get to see what your future's like if you don't make the changes that you need to make. So one of my limiting beliefs was when I came home at the end of the night, and I hope nobody hears me as insulting my family, but I felt like they brought my energy level down, which, I mean, when you think about it, if I'm living up here for energy-wise, there's not that many people who are going to be lifting it up. But I would show up, and then because of that, well, then I guess I'm justified with playing extra iPad time, doing work, and just I let my energy come low. And it was really starting to bother me. And I wasn't enjoying being the father that I was. And I was like, man, I'm going to be causing problems for their future. So I brought that to Tony. And I'm in a room with over 10,000 people. He turns the lights right off. He's having us focus on this one thing. What's your one thing? And what's going to happen if you don't change it? So lights are off, eyes are closed. He goes, he takes us through this process. By the way, this first part of the process is over 2.5 hours of being in this pain. He says, I want you to go 5 years into the future. You didn't make any changes. You made no changes. What's your life like in 5 years? And I want to hear it. I want to hear the pain that you're experiencing. Remember, lights are out, 10,000 wailing voices. I don't know what hell is like. I can't imagine it's any different from what I experienced. There are people in this audience, and they're picturing the worst case scenario happened. This woman behind me is wailing like she just saw her kids get run over by a car. And I mean wailing. No! There's a guy in the back. You idiot! Why? 10,000 wailing voices. And what I'm doing is I'm picturing in 5 years, I've got no relationship left with my kids. I barely have a relationship with my wife. She doesn't respect me anymore because my kids don't respect me. My kids don't respect me because my wife doesn't respect me. I have no relationship. And he's telling us to look in the mirror. And he says, look in the mirror and you tell yourself, it's not your fault. It's not your fault, Marcus. Society made me like this. Social media made me like this. It's not your fault. And I'm weeping at this point, weeping. Go further, 10 years. 10 years, what's the worst case scenario? What's going to happen if you don't make a change? Now I'm picturing my daughter's getting married and I'm not even invited to the wedding. My wife with her new man is at the wedding. I'm bawling. And again, 10,000 voices wailing. They're watching everything go on around them. The worst case scenario. I'm dying. Like this is death to me. And he's look in the mirror. You tell yourself it's not your fault. Your parents made you like this. Society made you like this. Do you know how painful that is to experience that? And for anybody listening who wants even a taste of this, why don't you close your eyes and think about what's going to happen if you go down this path and things don't get better. Picture the worst case scenario. Over 3 hours later, just like Dickens, wake up. Oh my goodness, we're back in the room. Lights are on. Everybody's face, bright red, tears everywhere. You can change it. You're here right now. Are you going to change it? Yes, I'm going to change. I'm going to change. Was that story bullcrap? Yes, it's bullcrap. It's bullcrap. And then for the next 2 hours, he solidifies it. Are you going to make the change? Is it bullcrap? He does all these unbelievable things the way only Tony does. I came home that time. I hugging my children, hugging my wife. I sat at her feet on the couch and I just looked up at her. I'm just like, tell me about your day. Tell me how things were. What, tell me more about that. And I was just so enthralled because I'm like, there's no freaking way that's my future. No way. And I live every day remembering that because that's burned inside of me, man. That was pain. That was agony. And there's the Dickens principle for you.
What year was that?
that was last year, bro.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So when we first started talking about this, I didn't remember the Dickens principle. So I went to UPW in 2014. And kind of interesting, the whole reason you and I are talking right now is because I literally wrote down, I'm going to start a podcast and I'm going to write a book. Wow. Came out of that event.
Wow.
But I remember that experience because at first, because anybody outside of that experience is like, oh my God, it sounds like a cult, right? It sounds very powerful, which it was very powerful. And dude, I will never forget that moment. I will never forget that moment because it was so powerful because nobody in their right mind sits there and starts to think if I do nothing or if I don't change whatever that is, what is the worst possible scenario that plays out, and then sits with it in a guided meditation arena and sits with it and visualizes it with the lights off for everything it's worth. And yeah, I will never forget everyone around me crying, screaming. And guess what? For a minute, I was like, has everyone in this arena gone mad? Like what is going on? And then I gave myself to it.
Yes.
And I started visualizing my own life. And then I found my own self. At one point I freaking screamed at the top of my lungs.
Yes.
I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yes.
this can't be me. And it was, had everything to do with my marriage.
Yeah.
Had everything to do with my kids.
Yes.
The things that I was not good at the time. And I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. You probably wouldn't either, had it not been for that moment.
That's right.
I appreciate you sharing that, because anybody who's a high level entrepreneur, 8, 9 figure businesses like yourself, that guy doesn't have a problem in the world. Like he's good. But I would really love for you to share what it takes to balance your physical being, your emotional being, your mental being. I know you're a spiritual guy, your marriage and your kids, just this everything all at once, and do it well. Now I say that because I know we all know, no matter who we are, every day is not sunshine and rainbows, but there are skills and there's resilience and there's a mindset that we have about it that allows us to operate at those levels. But I'm curious, what is yours?
Thank you. First of all, there's a lot of compliments in there. Let me start by giving you one of my favorite principles. It's called the baby steps principle. And I think the world can change. Your world will change with baby steps. A lot of people try and overhaul their life overnight. And I really, really rarely see success out of that. Okay, I don't work out at all, but tomorrow I'm going to start my first workout. I'm going to do 6 days a week, 2 hours a day, every day. I'm going to start eating right tomorrow. Baby steps. That's really hard to keep up. And we've all failed on diets, myself included, many times. But now I do baby steps. I do these baby step changes. So instead of going, I'm going to work out 5 days in the next week. I'm going to, if you don't work out at all, how about 2 days this week? You're going to just train twice, and you're going to start changing your identity. This is so important to start changing your identity. You are a person who works out. You can't say things like, I always skip my workouts. That's so me. I give up on this stuff. So that's your identity. You're wearing it like a badge, like you're proud of it. You got to stop that. You are a healthy person. I am a person who works out. You start speaking like that, you go, yeah, I'm not going to skip my workout. I'm a healthy person who works out. I don't skip workouts. And I only need to do 2 this week. That's really, I'm going to accomplish that. You want to do a third? Go ahead. But you just needed to do 2. The third was extra. The third was on you. That way you don't feel bad if you only do 2 next week. A few weeks later, you can step it up. Eating. You're going to change a few meals this week from fast food into healthy food. Just 2 or 3. Just 2 or 3. You don't have to do the full overhaul. You're drinking every night. You're going to take 2 nights, no alcohol. See how these little changes, and you get used to them. That wasn't so bad. I just did 2 less times. And then you keep getting better and better. This can work in all areas of your life. Spending time with your kids, you're like, okay, I want to spend tons more time. I'm going to do an extra hour a night. I'm going to be honest, that sounds like a lot. And I've done that before too, where it's like, I can't keep that up. What if I said 10 minutes? You're going to do 10 extra minutes tonight, but it's going to be fully concentrated on your kids. No devices, no TV, no nothing, just me and my kids for 10 extra minutes. That's doable, right? These are the baby steps. Now, to answer your question in a slightly different way, how do I keep it all balanced? Number one, when people are talking to me about balance, talking to me about what should be my first focus, I tell all people, you got to find God. And I'm not here preaching like you got to find Jesus. No. Listen to my words. You got to find God. You got to find something bigger than you. If you're not comfortable with the word God, use the word universe. It really doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that you understand there's something bigger than you at play. If the world is sitting on your shoulders and your shoulders alone, there's no chance you're going to do great things. Like no chance. There are very few people in this world who believe that it is all on their shoulders and then they still accomplish crazy things. If you think one mortgage is tough to handle, there was a point a while back where I just had a fun little exercise. I'm like, I wonder how many mortgages I'm responsible for. There was 100 families' mortgages across the world that I was responsible for. If I went out of business tomorrow, there was 100 families that wouldn't pay their mortgage. So let's do some easy math here, people. 1 mortgage is stressful. What do you think 100 mortgages are like? I'm not a superhero. I don't have some superpower. I'm not better than anybody else. In fact, I think I'm a very average dude. But I believe it's not on me. I believe God has this awesome path for me. He gave me this business. He's led me every day. I pray to him. I ask him for things. I ask him to guide me. And he comes out. If I'm going to go out of business, it's because he chose to put me out of business. If I'm going to do even better and have 400 mortgages on my plate, it's because he put those on my plate, so I don't have to carry them. So I'm worried I'm going to get into too long of an answer, but they're spiritual. How's that for a start, brother?
Dude, I love that. Well, I think, first of all, I'm a faith-based person myself, so I really appreciate everything you just said. But I think we do need to have, we need to have things that are bigger, right? So like my two levers are my faith and my fitness. Those are like the non-negotiables, right? When I do those two things, everything else seems to fall like a domino. And of course, family, right? All those things,
Yes.
right? But I'm just talking about things that are very personal to me that I can drink in,
Yes.
so I can then pour out into others and lead others more effectively, right?
Love it.
And I think that's so important, that we don't have to carry the burden all by ourselves, whether that's the universe, whether that's God that you believe in. Do you have time for one more question?
Please. I have all the time in the world for this, brother.
Outstanding. I didn't know if you had a hard stop or not, but you are a very, very fit person. And I would say, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, but physically, you are a specimen, my friend.
Thank you, brother.
And, I love, fitness is my thing. I love being fit as well. And there's a part of me that when my kids say, Dad, I don't know any of my friends whose dads have abs. Like, I think I'm so proud to have a dad who's fit. And I love hearing that. But I also think the outward appearance is a direct reflection of what is most meaningful to what you're doing inward. Right. And I always tell my boys, I was like, dude, I don't train for abs.
Yeah.
I train for here, and here is where I train. And that's just an outlet, really. I was like, when I can like take my stress and also find my joy in lifting heavy things and doing something that's performance based, it fills me up. It doesn't take it out. It fills me up. So regardless of whether or not I got the right now, the physical at my age, physical benefits they're just a bonus. But every guy that I talk, not every guy, but a lot of men that I talk to, there's two things going on when it comes to taking care of themselves physically. And I would also even say emotionally as well. I don't have time for it. How can I possibly justify taking care of myself? All these, my family needs me, my work needs me. You're running 8 and 9 figure businesses. You have 2 daughters that desperately need your attention. You have a wife that desperately needs your attention. You're paying 100 mortgages with 100 employees minimum, right? There's every excuse in the world for somebody like yourself, as well as the average person who's like, I just don't have the time. But for you, why and how do you make the time? Why is it so important?
Love the question, and I love the setup, by the way. And number one, we have to flip how this question is asked, and that's the problem. People are looking at it from just this direction. This is your perspective. Just understand you can have a different perspective. So let me tell you, the answer is this. It's not about making more time or you have to make time for what's important. Nope. I wouldn't be this person if I didn't get my exercise in. The exercise allows me to become the man I am, gives me the energy. People think it takes it away. That's an absolute lie. It's just false. It probably takes away your energy if you're doing the wrong thing or you're doing it too quickly. But the truth is, exercise gives you so much more energy. The energy you see me have right here, I'm not all hopped up on caffeine or anything like this. This is who Markus is because I get my exercise in the morning and I'm all fired up for a big day. And it's not about the physical. And I love that you said this, brother. Man, we have so much in common. I don't do it for the physical. The physical is a side effect. It's an awesome side effect. And yes, when the girls, they always come home with pride in their voice, but they're joking. They're like, Dad, our friends Googled you again today. And but they're like, and we're so proud that's our dad. But anyway, that's all a side effect. I work out because I have to work out. I have to work out so I have the energy to get this done, so that my mind is ready. I get rid of all the stress. I get focused on the right things. The blood is flowing properly. Plus, I don't get sick. That's a huge thing. How much time do we spend being sick? How much time do we spend going to doctors, going to the hospital and stuff? And listen, I'm not pointing fingers at everybody who's like, hey, I've got real health problems. Listen, I'm not judging you, man. That's not what this is about. But things like colds, I'll tell you right now, if you get a cold, that was a choice. There it is. That's a choice to get a cold. You know why? Because every one of us know a cold is coming. Every one of us, I didn't sleep that well last night. I feel a little tingle in my throat. Okay, so today are you taking it easy? Today are you making sure you're eating right, drinking right, going to sleep early? Don't put any alcohol in your body. Don't go hard on your body. Don't stay out late. If you do those things, you treat yourself right, that cold does not show up. That cold is a choice, and the cold can lead to other things. So listen, that's why I am the way I am. The exercise equals the great stuff, not I have to fit it in somehow. Start with the exercise.
I 100% agree with all of that. I find that it's exactly what you said. I'll be really honest. Today was the first Monday I have not trained, and I can't even remember when.
Ooh.
Normally I'll take off on Sundays because it's just, it's a rest day. It's a family day. It's my faith day, that kind of thing. I might go out for a quick run or walk the dog, but that's about it. And yesterday I ran 5 miles. But today, fascinating thing, I set my alarm for what I normally do, have the same routine every single Monday. I do my scripture on the way to the gym. I reflect and journal in the parking lot for a few minutes on that because I'm a big proponent. I love the Hallow app. And to do the daily gospel, walk into the gym. After I do my journaling, do my gym, and then I'm in my first meeting by 8:30 in the morning. Today I didn't do that. And I'm not giving an excuse, but it's exactly what you just said. So last night I noticed that I didn't feel 100%. And I'm like, I'm not feeling great. So could something actually be happening? Like, could I be getting sick? And so I was just like, I'll see how I feel in the morning. Well, I woke up at 12:45 at night. My stomach, for some reason, was a bit of a mess. And took care of that, went back to sleep. But my alarm went off at 6:20, and I was just like, I don't feel all that great. And today, and it was actually extremely hard for me. I had a lot of guilt actually, because I was like, today I'm going to walk the dog again. And I'm not going to hit the weights. Normally I do legs on Monday. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that today, because if I spin myself up and if this is something bad and I don't get some rest, it could be bad. So I did that. Here's the interesting thing. I had to deal with the mental guilt. Like, I broke my own promise. I did this, I did that, but I feel fantastic today. So obviously I think my body was trying to tell me, and usually I'm very stubborn. I don't listen to it, but I was just like, I'm going to take a pause. I'll walk the dog for 3 miles. That'll be the Monday workout. I'll hit it tomorrow morning. And I did that. A lot of guilt, but at the same time, yeah, sometimes your body's like, hello, hey, chill out for a second, just a second, rebound tomorrow. But I think you're right.
Oh, bro. Hey, can I give you, I want to give you one of my favorite mindset tips, by the way.
Please. Yeah, that'd be great.
By the way, in case anybody hadn't noticed, I'm a mindset guy. Like I think we're not even using 1% of 1%. I think every time I learn something new, I'm like, oh my goodness, the world's going to be easier because of this, what I just learned. I have a very specific feeling on guilt. Guilt plays almost zero role in our success. The only use for guilt is for a split second to just go, what can I learn? Guilt will not serve you after that. So this guilt that you're feeling right now, what do I need to learn? Listen to what you just said. Well, my body actually told me I need it. Awesome. Should I feel guilty for taking it off? Well, no, because I probably would have gotten sick. Boom, done. Guilt over. Not going to serve me anymore. It's not welcome here. Now, I know that's easier said than done. I got a whole bunch of techniques to eventually rid you of that guilt. But the point is, number one, you just go, how is that serving me? It's not. So I'm going to stop thinking about that. Just think for a moment, do I need to learn? So we do something wrong. We cheat on our diet, let's say. You go, oh, I feel so guilty. Okay, hold on. What do you need to learn? Well, man, when I pass the cupcake store, I stop for a cupcake. Okay, don't pass the cupcake store. Boom, lesson learned. Move on. The guilt won't serve you. Don't get stuck in the past. Let's think about the future and how we're going to fix it next time.
I love that, man. You know what's so funny is that when I was saying some of the things out loud, I noticed that guilt level went
Yeah.
down. But here's the funny thing: until you said that, I felt like, well, I should keep it here though, right? I should just keep it here. But then when you said that, I was like, oh my God, and there it is. Instead of let lingering guilt, maybe the question just becomes, well, wait a second, what did you
Yep.
learn? What are you gonna do? Most importantly, what are you gonna do
Yeah.
different? Right.
Yeah.
Um,
There it is.
man, as we head out of here today, I want to hit on one more thing, just a good takeaway, I think, for our guys in the audience listening. This Dickens principle, right?
Sir.
It's there's a 4-letter word, right? Starts with the word be and it ends with izzy, right? And we're all so busy, and we're so busy thinking, or we're so busy doing, that we're not being. Have you ever heard like, hey, stop being a human doing and be a human being?
Mm.
I think we all, right? We all need that reminder. But we're so busy being a human doing. But when we sit back and be like, wait a second, what are the things that serve me? Great, I'll keep doing that. But back to what you were talking about with the Dickens principle, what are some things that are not serving me? And if I do not take care of them, if I do not get in front of them or change them, this could be my
Oh
future.
yeah.
What solid message do you have for dads, husbands, business owners, career guys, just a man in general when it comes to that principle? What advice would you give them?
Oh, it's beautiful. So I'd say number one, spend 5 minutes today. Shut off everything. If you can, just go somewhere quiet, like go somewhere quiet in your house. Go, if you've got woods nearby, go in the woods for 5 minutes. Just be quiet. No devices, no nothing. Just give some quiet time thought. How about think about what will your future look like if you kept going like this? How about think about if you keep being so busy and in 5 years, 10 years, you're now explaining to your children who you don't have as good of a relationship with. Yeah, but I was making money for the family. What do you think their answer is going to be? We all know. We know exactly what their answer is going to be. Okay, well, hold on. Visualize it. It's 10 years from now. Tell it to their face. Tell it to their face that it was so important to have that extra $4,000 in the bank account. Tell them that our relationship was worth less than that amount of money. That's a tough pill to swallow. And hey, listen, I get it. Some of you might be like, Markus, I have to earn every penny just to keep a roof over our head. Hey man, I respect that so much. I respect that. I'm not coming down on you. Please don't hear this as coming down on you. But you get to find your own balance. Where could you find more room to spend that time with the kids? So if it's not less work time, I don't know, how much time are you at the bar? Like there's something. We all have the same 24 hours. Some of us are just using it better than others. So where could you shave off more time so you can have more dedicated time with those kids? And listen, one other thing you just said, it's actually something McConaughey talks about a lot. And I know you had your McConaughey on the show recently. By the way, my wife, this is how much my wife, she builds me up so much, man. My wife's just the most amazing wife. She goes, hold on. So he had McConaughey recently, and now he's having you on the show. Man, his show's starting to do really well these days, eh? Real uptick for the show. I was like, that's my girl. That's my girl. But McConaughey talks about not just the things we should be focusing on, but what things do we need to get out of our lives? It's almost equal. Man, this might actually be more important. It's one of the things I talk about a lot. There's so much of this stuff, like what we just talked about, guilt. It's not just about, hey, here, add this to your life. It's get guilt out of your life. Get this out of your life. Get this out of your life. When we start clearing these things, we notice we have more energy. We have more time. There's a lot that we need to clean off of our plates.
I love that, man. When we say no to something, we can say yes to something else.
Yes.
Right. And that's how we can clear some margin. Right. I love that.
Yes.
I want to make sure that, dude, first of all, talk about energy giving, this interview with you and the relationship we have, it's meaningful to me and definitely meaningful to the audience, but I appreciate you coming on, man. But I want to make sure that the audience can find you. I mean, there's going to be a lot of guys that I think like, dude, I like that guy, man. I want to connect with him. What's the best way for guys to do that?
Thank you so much. Well, as you know, I've got my book coming out in spring. I'm hoping by the time this bad boy airs that you can pre-order it. It's called Play a Bigger Game. And soon playabiggergame.com is going to be up and running as well. I just want to help people play a bigger game. I think there's so many people out there, so many guys listening. I know for a fact it's the people listening to the show are like, I'm destined for more on this planet. I could be doing more. I could be doing more. I want to help you do more. I want to be your cheerleader, man. I hope what you got from me today is a whole lot of love, because I have so much love and I have no judgment. I've got so much mercy for what people are going through these days. And I'd love to cheer you on, give you some techniques, give you some perspective shift so you can play a bigger game in life. So playabiggerdame.com. My name, Markus Kaulius, is where you can find me everywhere. Surprisingly, it wasn't taken on Instagram. So I got Instagram and YouTube, just Markus Kaulius, markuskaulius.com. Come and find me, man. Reach out to me. Let me know you heard this. Let me know if something resonated from this episode. And I'd love to be part of your life. And
Oh man,
Larry, I appreciate you so much, man. I appreciate you being in my life. It's such a gift that I've been given this relationship. So thank you, and thanks for everything you're doing. Thanks for what you're doing for dads out there, man. We need more of this in our lives.
100%, man. This was awesome. So life-giving. And this is an open invite. As soon as you're ready to launch that book, I want you back on the show to specifically talk all about that book, so we can help you with that, as well as help our guys with that type of mindset to play a bigger game. Gentlemen, you're not going to have to look far. Just head on over to thedadedge.com/Friday 117 to connect with Markus. We'll have all his links in the show notes, but appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you coming on.
Appreciate you. Love you, brother. God bless you, man.
Back at you. You too. Bye-bye.